community public safety, but specifically to try and connect specific groups that want to have a direct connection with APD, and also our APD officers who want to have a direct connection with certain areas or groups that they're interested in our community. And so that's really what the APD Ambassadors Program is all about. And for us, this really is a part of a new way going forward for law enforcement that fundamentally is about building trust and personal connection and being able to understand and share each other's lived experience. And we know that we often do that in our own networks and our own groups, but yet what is so often needed in our community is us to share it across our own groups and networks. And that's what this is going to enable us to do. Now, Lieutenant Jennifer Garcia, who's going to speak next, oversees this program, and she's done a tremendous job of just taking ownership of this and pushing it forward. And so I'm very appreciative of the leadership at APD and the leadership in the respective community groups for being on board with this. But I also just want to acknowledge Lieutenant Garcia for saying, like, okay, I will own this going forward, which is awesome. So thank you for stepping up, Lieutenant. Now, we know that we've learned a lot of lessons, and we continue with respect to our police department and the city of Albuquerque, basically every week at this point. But we continue to listen and learn and to try to take action. And we know that reimagining policing means listening and learning from the community, as well as from other folks in our department and in public safety. And this program will also take us a long way towards that. So Chief Medina really began by reaching out to a few community leaders who actually were part of a lot of the protests and movement for social justice and reform going back not just last year, but actually even several years before that. And I appreciate his willingness to listen and to also step up as the Chief of Police and say that this is an important part of our overall department efforts. And so we continue our cross-departmental efforts with our Office of Equity and Inclusion and our new African American liaison who's here, as well as some others from that office. And also, of course, Pastor Walker, who helps as one of our key advisors over on the APD side. And also every resident who has chosen just to be a part of moving forward. No matter what it is, no matter what we've gone through in the past, what we really want to honor in all aspects is how can we make things just a little bit better, hopefully more than a little bit, but just a little bit better next week and next month and next year. It's that long game that we're all about, because that is actually real change. So with that, let me hand it over to some of the folks who've really put this together. And so Chief Medina, I've got you up next. And so if you want to go that way, or do you want Lieutenant Garcia to walk through the specific officers and so forth? Okay, so why don't Lieutenant Garcia, why don't you go ahead and introduce the different officers and community organizations, and then we'll go to Chief Medina. Thanks.
Good afternoon. So I want to thank the mayor and the chief for the opportunity to work with this program. It's been wonderful so far. We've had a great response for the community, and I want to thank the organizations and the individuals that have stepped up to be a part of this. Our first ambassador is Sergeant Gerard Bartlett. Sergeant Bartlett is the ambassador for the Native American community. Our next two officers are Officer Rob Duran and Officer Hence Williams, and they are the ambassadors for the African American community. For the Hispanic community, we have Detective Luis Hernandez, who cannot be with us today, and Officer Emmanuel Solis. With the Asian community, we have Acting Sergeant Gerald Sheldon, Officer Greg Valentino, the ambassador for the refugee community, Officer Chase Jewell is our ambassador for the LGBTQ+ community. For our faith-based community, we have Officer Brett Garcia, Sergeant Pete Silva, the ambassador for the senior citizen community, For our U.S. veteran community, we have Sergeant Larry Middleton. And for our Americans with Disabilities community, we have Officer Jeff Bloodworth.
I want to thank everybody for being here today, both the community and the officers, for taking this giant step forward in improving relationships and ensuring that we are working with all of the community. The Ambassador Program was actually an idea that I had as a Deputy Chief of Field Services, and at the time I wasn't able to get the program off the ground. When I became Interim Chief, this was one of my biggest priorities, and couple that with the fact that we were coming out of a season with protests, and I quickly saw the benefit as I made a difficult call one Saturday morning to some individuals that are on the stage. And we started to communicate and talk about how we could work better together. And I learned a lot from these two young men about how we could improve as a department. And from there, it kept continuing to grow and grow to the point where we're at today. The Ambassador Program is about hearing the voices that aren't always heard by the police department. In the past, during my 26 years, I could say that we were really good at listening to neighborhood associations because they liked us. But this is about communicating and working with all groups, especially those that have struggled in the past in having a relationship with police in general. I wanted to thank the community members that have taken this courageous step to work with the police department, because it's not always easy. I've learned through my work at the Pueblo of Laguna, I learned about, how the mistrust sometimes goes back hundreds of years, and we must find a way to move forward. And this program is a step to help us move forward through strong communications. The Ambassador Program has 4 key parts. The first part is ensuring that every group within the community has an ear that is going to hear their voice and carry that message all the way to the highest levels of the police department. The second goal is ensuring that our ambassadors are learning from these community groups where there could sometimes be conflict with the way we do business, the way our policies are written, and ensuring that we start communicating on how we could lessen the impact that those conflicts could have. The third part is bringing that back to the department, ensuring that our officers understand that we teach the rest of the department what it's like to be members of a certain community, to gain that understanding and that compassion and knowing how we could get through tough times together. And the fourth part is a strong department is a strong reflection of the community. It's a recruiting tool. We need to grow the ranks of the Albuquerque Police Department to include all representatives. Our police department should look like our community, and that's what we're hoping we'll accomplish with this Ambassador Program. Already the communications have started. There have been tough discussions. There have been tough questions asked of the police department. We just completed our first of 12 town halls that are specific to the area commands, and we started with a town hall that included the black community and law enforcement. And we had good, honest dialogue that occurred. And like I said, tough questions were asked, but mutual respect was gained and trust was earned. Many individuals don't feel comfortable reporting crime. In order for us to overcome that, we need to continue to develop these relationships with the community. Recently, we had members of the Asian community who had unreported crime, but our Ambassador Program was a springboard for them gaining the confidence to reach out to the police department to report this type of crime. And that is the essence of what the Ambassador Program is. Working together, ensuring that we're doing everything we can so individuals feel comfortable in reporting, whether it's crime, misconduct, or just telling us how we could do our job better, and even at times how we have done our job well. Because those are all the things that I've heard in the early stages of the Ambassador Program. I want to thank everybody for being here today, for coming out and supporting this program, the officers who have taken that step forward in being what our department is going to transform into, community ambassadors working with the community. This is the first step. We're going to turn it over to Deputy Chief Michael Smathers now, who oversees a lot of the portions of this program. Deputy Chief.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm really pleased to tell you that we've had tremendous success with our ambassador program so far. When we made the announcement internally within the police department, we had a lot of men and women reach out to us and express interest in this program. We certainly hope and expect it to expand. Lieutenant Garcia went over the many groups that we already have connections with, and honestly, if there's any other groups out there that want to connect with us through this program, we invite you to and ask you to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to form those partnerships with you as well. These men and women serve the city, and they're liaisons, as Chief Medina mentioned, with the variety of diverse groups within the city. And they are expected to host at least one event a month with their communities, get that feedback, get that input from them on the things that we're doing well, the things we're doing poorly, and then report that back to Chief Medina. They also are going to kind of lead those discussions to outline topics that can be those difficult conversations to have with the community members and ways that we can do our job better, connect better with them. And one of the most important parts of it, I believe, is the ambassadors are going to ask their community constituents to regularly come to the police academy and have interaction with our police cadets to form those relationships quickly with those men and women that we're training to be our next generation of officers, to where they can see our commitment to community engagement and hear from the men and women that they're going to be policing in their community. So we're excited about that and look forward to what's ahead. I'm going to introduce one of our ambassadors to you, is Officer Hence Williams, and he's going to describe some of his direct initial experiences.
DC, thank you very much. My name's Hence Williams. I've been with the Albuquerque Police Department for about 4 years now. Email went out about 4 or 5 months ago looking for interest for a program like this, and I wasn't exactly sure, and I don't think any of us were sure what exactly we were going to be doing, but we knew or had some idea what it meant to be an ambassador, to link, overcome a gap, and all of us are doing that. It's been pretty exciting. I can tell you, I think we all found out about our positions about 2 weeks ago. I know a handful of us were able to meet with some members of the Islamic community and break a fast Saturday evening. We answered questions and we asked questions, and I can only hope that they learned as much from me as I did from them. I've never seen or been a part of an Islamic prayer, so to watch that ceremony was pretty special. I can tell you this morning I got up, I started taking calls for service. Officer Duran met with or scheduled a meeting with members of the black community so that we could hear their concerns and what their expectations were from the ambassador program. Lieutenant Garcia has made it very clear to all of us what she expects and what the Albuquerque Police Department expects from us. And that starts with listening. But after we listen, we need to start taking some action. And I'm confident we're going to do that. I know I'm excited, and the rest of the individuals with me are excited to be a part of this program. I was out there with a lot of these officers last summer, doing our best to keep the peace during the protests, and unfortunately doing our best to keep the peace when there was a riot or two. I don't want that to happen again. I like that people get out and protest, and I want them to continue to do that when they feel they need to. But if we can meet them before it even gets that far, then I think we're doing the right thing. I look forward to being a part of this program, and I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Officer. And looking at our schedule here, I just want to check with Rebecca. We're okay. So I think what we'd like to do is anyone available up here is open to questions. Also, Rebecca can sort of arrange them one-on-one, but we'll take a few questions. Also want to acknowledge, of course, Dr. Bailey was around here. There he is, from the NAACP. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Bailey. Okay, so with that, questions, and I'll just kind of hand them off to the right person. Sure. You can come closer if you want to. I mean, it's like, I don't know. Sure, it's a good question, and I think Chief Medina can really speak to that. And it is meant to be a organic setup, such that we'll add ambassadors as kind of requested and needed. But go ahead, Chief.
That's a great question, and it's actually very organic, and we're growing into that. When we met with the Asian community, one of the first groups we met with was the Asian Business Coalition. And we started those discussions, and we actually started putting crime prevention material into a variety of different languages based off of that meeting. We recently met with the Mexican consulate, and they're working to help us gather Mexican national-owned businesses so we could speak to them and give them outlets on how they could improve their business or protect themselves. So each group is going to organically grow into the community, and I suspect that business is going to be a big part of it, since so many are business owners, and that is just one of the branches that is going to develop from this tree. The City of Albuquerque already has partnerships. Just last week I did meet with hotel motel owners. That's our hospitality group that's through our Connect program. We're working to regrow that program so that we could have better communication, better sharing of information. We also have the same with the big box stores through our RAPA program, and the SICA program is our Construction Industry Crime Alliance. They're also working to get back on track. The pandemic slowed us down in a lot of these types of meetings, and we're working to get those moving forward. And I think that's just goes to show the variety and the different types of partnerships we have to have with the community. It's not just ambassadors with the different groups in the community based off of race, religion, sexual orientation. It's also the key partners in the community, like some of those that I just mentioned, that we're working to reestablish those partnerships with.
Thanks, Chief. Yeah, and I would just add, this is really focused on where the gaps were. As Chief outlined, actually, a lot of those groups already exist and actually have for several decades. Okay, any others? Okay, that's good for now. Well, I really appreciate everyone for being here. And again, Rebecca can organize some one-on-ones if you're interested. Thank you so much.